Okay, welcome to RCR Podcast 10 whatever. This is the Last Independent Automaker. We are joined, hey, we have a guest for once. This is Joe Ligo. You know him from the YouTube channel AutoMoments, also as a producer from Motor Week. Yes, that Motor Week. That's been in, it's
41
been
years.
41 years.
I was only there like 3.5 though. So
Still.
I can't take too much credit.
Still, you met John Davis and his outdoor voice all the time.
He does.
I heard he's a nice guy, though.
No, he's a nice guy. It was funny. Like the first time I met him, I was like, I wonder if he talks like that all the time. And he does. I mean, he does have an indoor voice. But
He does have an indoor voice?
Yes.
I love that picture you posted of him, and it looks like he was just wearing long pants and socks on grass or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that was that. I personally didn't post that. But, yeah, the Motor Week Twitter posted a picture. They're doing stand-ups, which is the part of the show where he introduces the cars.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he had his pants that day were particularly long. So they kind of covered up his shoes. And then the grass was kind of tall. So it looked like he was out, like, in his socks because you couldn't see his shoes.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. But it was like 90. That was like 2 days ago. It was like 90 in Maryland. I don't know. They have offset. They used to have they probably still use it, one of those gigantic shop fans.
Yeah.
And as soon as the camera stops, they turn that thing on. He goes and stands in front of it while they like move the cars around. Because he's out there in like a blazer and khakis. So
he's a very old school broadcaster.
Says Joe's mic isn't working properly. Too quiet.
All right. Do I need to move up?
Is he too hot or what? All right. Mic check on Joe.
Hi, howdy. Sorry about that if I was not being able to be heard or too loud.
Okay. You know what? We're gonna mute everybody's. We're gonna mute everybody's mic except Joe's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now your mic's on.
Oh, all right, cool. So while Brian's working with the audio thing to get us all turned back on, I'm going to welcome Joe. Well, I can't welcome Joe because Joe doesn't have a working mic, but he's here to talk with us about his upcoming 6-part AMC documentary titled The Last Independent Automaker. There are very few, actually not even very few. There's literally no one else on earth that I would want making or telling the AMC story but you, because you've probably forgotten more about AMC than I'll ever know, because you were the one that I went to proofread my RCR story script about it, and just like, hey, you know a lot of AMC stuff, just tell me what I'm doing wrong. Just blah.
Yeah, so, well, first off, that's a very flattering introduction, so thank you, Nate. Yeah, I'm not trying to be falsely modest here, but there are definitely people out there who know way more about AMC. They just don't make YouTube videos. I'm headed in a few months to Kenosha for in a few days to Kenosha, Wisconsin for a giant AMC show. And I mean, some of the people you meet there, oh my gosh, these guys are geniuses.
Oh, Brian, it says your mic isn't on, the one that Joe's using. Now?
Howdy. Hello.
Howdy.
We'll get it figured out.
Well, it'll come together, you know.
No, it's like literally I need another microphone.
We're
Weird.
cabling things up. Okay, so can you hear me now, everybody?
Can we hear Joe?
Can you hear Nick?
Can the chat tell us? Yeah. Oh, well, to answer Car Foolery's question, no, unfortunately, we did not ever get to film a review with my Kia Rio. Its clutch burned out before we ever got the chance. And yeah, it's just unfortunate all around. But I don't know, maybe sometime in the future, someone will offer us a Kia Rio and it'll be great. Because although not, let's see. Oh, whoops.
He threw the mic.
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Cardboard sleeve.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we didn't get to film it, but ultimately, you know, we've got a lot of great stuff coming up pretty soon that I'm really excited for you guys to get to be able to watch. And yeah, it's going to be great. It's gonna be great.
All right. We'll see. Can we hear each other now? Can you guys hear me?
I think he's got
unmuted.
You were on pot 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dominic
says
says
better now.
yes. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Also, Dominic says he has a 1979 Spirit AMX, which yes, I do appreciate.
That
Thank
is
you.
so dope.
Those are
Those
so
are
cool.
so awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's funny. I delete the footage that I use for every RCR stories to free up room on my hard drive,
Right.
but I didn't for the AMC one, just because I like. It's nice to be able to know that I can see what those things are doing in motion anytime, you know, without having to necessarily go back and watch my video and hear my voice. Not that I have a problem with it. It's just, I don't know. It's very weird to me.
No, yeah. Once you make a video, I don't know how often you guys do, but I don't tend to go back and watch something I made.
No.
Unless I forget what I said, or if like somebody comments on something like 5 years later and the video shows up like such and such comment. I was like, who's watching this?
Yeah. I wish I were cool enough to be vain, but I'm not.
Yeah.
This is just now.
Sometimes I'll go back and watch. I'm like, I can't believe I said that. That's
Yeah.
so stupid. Why did I say that?
All right. So let's reset intros. So welcome to RCR podcast number 106, the Last Independent Automaker. I'm Nick.
I'm Joe Ligo.
And I'm Brian. You
So-
remember Joe Ligo from AutoMoments, and he was also a producer on Auto Week, the Real Auto Week.
Motor Week.
Fuck. Who was
Sorry.
Auto Week?
I think they're another magazine or show. I don't know.
Was that Blake Wrong?
Blake Wrong?
He worked at the Peterson Museum, and he worked for someone else, and
think
everybody
it
like
was-
tangentially works for Drive now, or The Drive.
I think he did.
But yes, Motor Week is the PBS show that everyone knows and loves, filmed in Owings Mills, Maryland, with John Davis.
Yes.
So come drive with us next.
I love how they put all the old stuff on there from like the 80s that they're
That is
posting
great.
those rule.
That was one of my favorite things when I worked there for like 3.5 years. I helped the guy who was like digging the old tapes out of the library and recording the retro reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we'd be like digging up stuff in these ancient videotapes. They were all corroded and like wouldn't play and would get stuck in the machines. I'm like, no, you don't understand. We have to save this tape. It has like the first Mazda Miata test on it.
Yeah.
You know, and so we actually would put them in a food dehydrator to dry out the because it would get microscopic like condensation on the tape, and then it would get sticky and it wouldn't play in the machine. So we'd put them in a food dehydrator to dry them out, and then usually that worked.
Damn.
Oh, and quick correction, it's podcast number 109, not 106.
Okay.
I'm very anal about that. So
109.
109. I misspeak all the time. So
But we're all set.
Hot.
Yes.
I don't want to become an old guy that just talks about the weather. And it's like, so what? It's summer. It's hot. That's what it is.
that's what happened.
It's just, I want to open a window, but I don't know if that's going to be better or worse.
Well, like yesterday, my air conditioning went down right as I got a notification that a heat wave was warning was in effect, or heat warning. So like we had to call in the maintenance guy, and then it was this whole like 4-hour process to get it back up and running again. And then another hour after that for everything to go back to normal, which, okay, first world problems. I'm complaining about something. Oh, boo-hoo. You have to go a few hours with just using the fan, but just using the fan alone was brutal in itself. And I can't even, like, my heart goes out to people who don't even have that much. I'm really hoping they're like getting to a pool or a freaking stream or something.
Go down to a basement somewhere.
Yeah. Currently I'm literally just sitting around after I do my writing for the day and like RCR related stuff. I play Power Wash Simulator and so it is very relaxing.
That sounds amazing.
Or rather, I watch my girlfriend play Power Wash Simulator. We kind of like trade off on things, but it's super relaxing. And now I want to try Car Mechanic Simulator because that one seems like it would be very much an edifying process for me. And I'm really getting into all these simulator games like, House Flipper, like freaking I haven't tried Farming Simulator yet, but I kind of want to. I hear that they're coming out with a sequel to my summer car called My Winter Car, which sounds like it could be really good. So yeah, rock and roll.
Tried playing my summer car, and eventually I'm like, this is too accurate. This is I don't know how anything goes together. And it's not like working on modern stuff. You can just read a manual. It's one of these games that you have to go through YouTube tutorials like you're working on your own car, how this thing fits in this thing, because the game just like doesn't tell you.
Work on cars all day to then go play a video game where you
working
work on cars.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of my struggle with automation, which I really did enjoy. Don't get me wrong. It's just it was way above my level of comprehension.
Yeah.
I think.
I always thought it would be cool, not to bring up the Motor Week thing again, but when I worked there, I always thought it'd be cool if they made like an open world Motor Week video game where you just like walk around as John Davis and test different cars.
Huh.
And, like, it's just like, oh no, you're in the middle of Owings Mills, Maryland. You need to walk back to the stations. You can drive the new Ram 1500. Or
Right.
I don't know. It's like auto journalist simulator.
What is
How many shrimp can you eat?
What is Owings Mills? Is it a real community? Is it like a bedroom community? Is it like Culver City or like the City of Industry, California?
So Owings Mills is, the Beltway goes around Baltimore.
Yeah.
It's a stop on the Beltway.
Okay.
And back in the 80s and 70s, it was literally nothing. Like you watch the old Motor Week road test, they're like the TV station was on a hill in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it is just built up into like suburban purgatory.
Okay.
So, I mean, 4-lane stroads with turning lanes every which way and, gas stations and stores and chain restaurants and Best Buys with parking lots that aren't big enough. And, I'm assuming most of the people there are working in Baltimore or something, but I mean, it seems to be a fairly wealthy area, but then, it's connected to areas that aren't. But I'm not a native Marylander. So I'm from Pennsylvania. So I'm not super familiar with it other than like my commuting. I know my biggest complaint with Owings Mills was that for how busy the area is, there's not an easy way to get there from 83. And whenever it storms, all the roads out of town get flooded or get tree branches on them.
Oh.
Like one time I was literally stuck in Owings Mills and could not get out of that dang town to get home. It was like stormed. It was like, okay, that road's blocked. Okay, that road's blocked.
Did you have to commute down there every day?
Yeah. But it wasn't too bad. It wasn't, thankfully I kind of knew a back way. So like, if you go through rural Maryland, it's a pretty drive.
Okay.
So it's not the worst thing in the world. It was better than driving all the way into Baltimore or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I could actually get there without taking the Beltway if I took the back way. So that was nice.
Yeah. I can't remember. Like I go out of my way to not go near Baltimore. Like I like the other way. There's that it's not 83. You go even farther. You swing around. Or am I thinking of the way to get to Richmond? There's another way to swing around where you don't go.
Yeah.
You don't
like
deal with
around
Baltimore and
Fair-
you don't deal with DC.
Yeah. There's
Go-
bypasses and stuff.
Yeah, you end up in Fairfax, I want to say.
I think that
Yeah.
sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, you're adding like 45 minutes to your trip, but also you're just driving on. Yeah, I think it is. No, it's 81. You stay on 81 and it goes meow. Maryland.
Yeah.
Maryland. Yeah. It's very
So-
much it's in the game.
And it's funny,
That
like
has
you
nothing to
can't
do with
you
anything.
can't see in the studio, like the studio / my living room. There is a tiny poster to my right that just says Maryland.
Is that looks like Annapolis, probably.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like that's like, oh, let's go to Maryland, like the nice thing. We'll go out by the water.
Slightly
Get some-
collegiate, slightly nautical.
Yeah,
Get some crabs with Old Bay.
yeah.
Do the thing.
Yeah.
Go to
It's
the
like-
place.
You're like maybe on like we'll go to the Inner Harbor like on a Wednesday at like 10:30 in the morning. We'll go to the aquarium and like
Stop by
leave.
Federal Hill.
Yeah, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Out is we gotta. It's like just like that Simpsons episode. You gotta leave Baltimore before dark, Like, or we've got to beat rush hour. So it's like
There's a lot of that. There's like literally rush hour starts at like 2:30.
Yeah.
Because
Ooh.
everybody is trying to beat rush hour, which
Yeah.
just makes rush hour last from 2:30 to 6.
yeah,
Well, hi to anyone in
yeah. So it's
Maryland
like
listening to this.
10:30 to 12:30 is like the time to go to the Inner Harbor.
No, it's but I actually am not super familiar with Maryland. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but in Western Pennsylvania. So Pittsburgh was the thing. Everybody, people would go to Pittsburgh for everything. That was if there was a big event going on, you were going down to Pittsburgh
Mhm.
and going to the Consol Energy Center or going to the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. That's where they'd have the furry convention would come to town.
Oh, yeah.
David L. Lawrence. That's a really nice convention center. Anything when I was in high school,
It's huge.
anytime there was an event, it was you're going to David Lawrence because that was like
That's
was the
it,
place.
really,
That's
yeah.
the place.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh's tight. It's a tight city. It's terrible to drive, terrible to do anything. It's great if you have a bicycle and everything else. Tiny, tiny downtown, a way smaller city than you think it is.
Well, it's bizarrely laid out. It's so there's no method to the madness other than like build as much as you can on hills, and streams and tunnels.
Yeah, Nick's heard this story, but when I went to see the Slackers in Millvale, which is a ska band, and it was either Glenn Pine or Vic Ruggiero says, we're so glad to be here in Pittsburgh, something, something. And then someone in the audience yells, I crossed 3 bridges to get here. And then Tim Strickler was with us and he says, how are you even alive? And then there was like a knowing Pittsburgh laugh. And like, I guess the guys in the band didn't get it, but
it is. Yeah. There's one bridge and I'm not super familiar with There's one bridge where there's like, it's like 500 feet and there's like 4 exits.
Yeah.
And you got to make up your mind and get to that lane in time.
Yeah.
Or else it's like, okay, well, I get to drive around the city a second time. That your GPS adds 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like,
Yeah. Pittsburgh makes you feel if you didn't grow up with GPS, having GPS will make you feel like you don't. It's things happen so fast. And the consequences of a wrong turn in Pittsburgh are immediate
and painful.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Millvale. The PBS station there, they made a documentary called The Joys of Millvale. And it is like the most whimsical, fun little, I think it's on YouTube. It's like the most whimsical, fun little thing. And the guy who produced it, his name's Rick Seaback. And I've never met him. I really want to. But one time I was visiting in college, I visited WQED, which is a PBS station. I asked, is Rick Seaback here? And the lady said, oh, no, sorry. He's in Maine right now filming a documentary about pie. And I was like, talk about a dream job.
Yeah. That's like some Howard, what's his name? Huell Hauser.
Huell Hauser, yeah.
Oh,
I believe the late Huell Hauser.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Is Pittsburgh worse than Boston, though? Genuinely curious as a non-Yinzer. I can't
no,
speak of that.
Boston's worse. Because Boston is even older than Pittsburgh.
Right.
So yeah,
it's designed for like horses.
Yeah. I mean, not that Pittsburgh isn't, but yeah, it's like Boston, you don't even mess with it. Like I was there once in a car and it's like you like people are aware the thing about, New York City, people know you don't drive in New York City. And by that, I mean Manhattan.
Yes.
But Boston, they just think, Old Town Boston. It's like, nah, Boston's worse. Because Manhattan is a grid work of streets. If you make a wrong turn, who cares?
Right,
you go around again.
Get to the next square.
Yeah. Whereas Boston, that's like a European style city where the roads are all curved and they're bendy and they're windy and there's no alleyways, even though New York City doesn't have alleyways, Manhattan doesn't.
So you guys have traveled more than me. What's a city when you think of cities that you think like, this city actually doesn't suck to like get around?
Houston, even though people are like, Houston is here. Houston was made for cars. So even though, the traffic jams are real and you can drive for 2 hours and you're still in Houston, it's just a size thing. Houston's not that bad. You will move in Houston. What's another place that's all right?
I was going to say Chicago, and I forgot about the huge jam that we got into.
Yeah, Chicago's a bit.
Yeah.
I think it's funny how like
I'd say like Philly, but I know my way. So
it's judging on a curve almost.
Like Philly's a place where sometimes you have to run a red light intentionally, because some shit's going down. You gotta
Garner, North Carolina, I want to say, when we were doing the Southern Stab and we were like getting to the point where we're just like, we just want to eat something, let's go. And then we came around Garner, which I want to say is like the Raleigh-Durham area, and we're expecting huge jams and there just weren't.
Okay.
or at least that's how
Was
I
that where we
remember
saw
it.
that guy get hit by a car?
No, that was Fairfax.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, then it's like, we shall never discuss this again, as we discuss this again.
Yeah.
But it's something that was a remarkably uncomfortable moment, and we just wanted to get back to the hotel and not think about it.
Yeah.
We were just like, it was like how we were leaving the bar the one time after Ronda Rousey's first loss.
Yeah.
Like, we went there and everybody was so amped up to see her
Yeah.
like beat Holly Holm, and then 30 seconds into the fight, it's like, it's over.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
She's not. In fact, as she's walking out, she looked like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. We're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we just drove home the entire way in silence.
Yeah.
Complete silence.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
People saying Portland, I guess. I mean, Portland had its traffic jams, but I can't remember driving in the city of Portland. It was always around the airport and not downtown. And even when we were in Portland last, Frederick Knudsen from Down the Rabbit Hole was doing all the driving. So,
True.
Yeah.
What about Toronto? How was it there?
Not bad.
Canadian transit.
Not bad. Actually, yeah, Toronto was all right. Yeah.
I think it's funny how, like, going back to the GPS thing, you'll GPS something in Pennsylvania and like it'll be like, take the turnpike. It adds 50 extra miles, but you save 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you take no highways and it's 50 fewer miles and takes the same amount of time.
Yep.
And you're like,
Yep.
It's like,
I'm
I'm
now-
taking Route 30.
Yeah. I'm now doing the shorter distance, longer time thing because now I'm thinking in EV terms, because it's not hardly using any electricity when it's stopped. So even if I'm putzing along like at 38 miles an hour through tiny Pennsylvania towns, like, oh, wait, that's low wind resistance. And I'm descending a bunch of hills. I'm making power and the motor isn't working very hard. This is all right.
Because it's fewer miles and half those miles are downhill.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
And then you go
nice.
back up the hill and you burn it all, but
yeah.
that's half the fun of an EV. So yes, EV's doing fine. I did talk to the electrician. He doesn't have a time yet. He's got to come out and figure out how he's going to wire up stuff in this old house. But eventually I'll have 220 out in the garage.
That's awesome.
You want to drive the Niro after this?
I would love that.
Okay.
So
I drove one in Motor Week a long time ago, and I was like, Kia's on to something here. They've got a nice.
You
little
drove
platform.
you had a Niro EV on Motor Week?
We had all three at some point. So we had a long-term regular hybrid Niro, and then we
Okay.
had a long-term plug-in hybrid Niro, and then we had a 2-week test with a full EV. And I thought all three of them, they really have. I mean, it's an car, like you said, but I think they're really onto something with that. It's like, does what it's supposed to do. It's easy to use, laid out, comfortable. I mean, I drove from, Maryland to Wisconsin in a Niro, and it was great. Now, granted, it was a loaded one that had like ventilated seats and stuff.
Hell yeah.
But
Was that the plug-in or the mild hybrid?
that was the regular hybrid.
Yeah.
And I got like 42 miles per gallon.
All right. Yeah.
And so I'm sure the EV one has all the stuff that the hybrid one, the seats
Well,
are
I
comfy and
don't
that kind of
have the ventilated seats. I don't have that option. I got heated seats, not ventilated seats. I have a heated steering wheel, which is my first ever thing with the heated steering wheel. And I'm looking forward to that because
Those are
honestly,
nice.
I think I would rather have a heated wheel than a heated seat because in the wintertime, I have those thermal pants that I bought. So my legs are always warm,
Yeah.
but my hands get cold quick. And something about the idea of a heated steering wheel. That's like, because I'm always aiming the vents at my hands in the wintertime. Like thinking about like when we film in the dead of winter, my hands just never get warm.
Yeah. Even with the little packets that you insert in the gloves.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
And the thing you do, if I guess you want to save battery, you use the heated wheel and the heated seat, and then you don't have to run the cabin heater, or you run it less. So you keep the cabin at like 60, but you have your wheel and your seat on, and that's actually supposedly. I mean, there's people on forums who can do this to the nth degree, but supposedly you'll get more range.
Yeah.
If you're not heating the cabin to 72 degrees and you're just heating the seat and the wheel.
You know what? Fuck that. Like by that time I'll have my 220. And in the wintertime, I'm not hauling hikers. We're not going very far.
You're right. Yeah.
That's
Like
true.
fuck it.
Just do the.
What do you
It's like these. It's
like? Do you want to
hyper-miling.
live? Do you want to live in misery all the time?
But then you get to tell people about how miserable you are. That's you
Yeah.
get those points,
There,
man.
there is
Now,
a cultural
granted, I am
capital.
driving that car around hardly ever using the AC. because I noticed my range really dips when you hit that compression. Well, dips by in terms of like 15. It cost me 15 miles of range turning the AC on. But probably once I get like filling that thing up, I think we talked about this before, but filling it up on Pennsylvania, or at least this part, is selling electricity at 13 cents a kilowatt. Your phone, 13 cents times 64 kilowatts.
Give me one sec. What,
$8.32 to fill it up? Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean,
and that gets me 270 miles if I don't turn the AC on.
Oh, wow.
If I do turn the AC on, then it's the advertised 250 mile range. So that's probably what they say, 250, which is about the mileage, a little bit less than the mileage that my 4Runner gets, because that thing drinks. And I really feel like when I drive the third gen, that's a lot of mass slowing down on a hill. And before, I would just ride the brakes or shift into second on like some steep hills. And now I'm like thinking about all the energy I'm just turning into heat, breaking down these hills. Whereas in the Nero, I just want to say Nero. Why is it called Niro?
I always thought it was Nero.
Nero, yeah.
That's how we said it on TV.
Nero, really?
We're driving the Kia Niro this week.
It's a good John Davis.
We get charged up about Hyundai's latest battery electric.
Does John Davis write his own copy?
So every script goes through his desk, but there's writers for different segments. Like there's a guy who produces the road test. So he'll make a script and then JD that's what they call him, JD, will go through it and make changes. But then that way he doesn't have to like Google every single horsepower number and like search.
Right, yeah.
But everything that he does VO for, he will read through and tweak words here and there and that kind of thing. And if it's something where he went on the press trip, then yeah, he'll write his own stuff.
Gotcha.
There was, I won't give away the guy's name, but there's one guy who wrote for us at one point that one of the other writers was complaining about. He's like, man, every time this guy writes scripts, we're always slipping and sliding into everything. We're slipping into BMWs, we're sliding into Mercedes. He's like, why can't we just say we drive? And so the person loved using like the metaphor slip. He's like, we slip into the new Mercedes, or we slide in behind the wheel of this new Kia. And so every script always had a slip or a slide in it. And the other writer didn't like that. He was like, I don't get, we're slipping and sliding.
I don't get it. I don't like this.
So, what is the average age of a Motor Week employee or Motor Week?
There's actually a pretty wide range because, you know, they have the kind of the road test producers and assistant producers are closer to like our age, you know, 20s, 30s. And then you have some of those positions tend to like, you know, they'll find something, they'll get hired in another show at the station, or they'll get promoted onto another thing. And then there's kind of the old guard of like the lifetimers who've been there. I mean, JD's been there since 81, you know, and then the other guys have, you know, one guy started in 88 and now he's an executive producer, and one guy started in like 95 and he's an executive producer.
I wonder if the same station that did Motor Week also did Wall Street Week in Review.
Yes. So
did any of those people met Louis Rukeyser?
Yes. So John Davis, how he got to Motor Week, we're doing a real deep dive here.
Hell yeah.
John Davis actually got a bachelor's in engineering and a master's in, I forget, maybe it was like some sort of financial degree.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was working on Wall Street in New York as a transportation analyst. And one day he saw an ad in the newspaper that said, looking for somebody with Wall Street experience to produce a television show in Maryland. And so he came to MPT in like 1972 or something as a producer on Wall Street Week with Louis Rukeyser.
Fuck off.
So he was a producer for Wall Street Week for like 10 years. And then there was some discussion where, you know, somebody said, hey, we're looking for new show ideas, you know, submit your ideas to the office. We'll go in. So John said, why don't we do a car show? He's like, he owned a Di Tommaso Pantera.
Hell yeah.
So
respect for the guy goes up.
He owned Mustangs and Corvettes to Di Tommaso and stuff. And so John submits this idea for a car show. They go back and forth. They shoot a pilot. It sits on a shelf for a couple years. And then word got out that another PBS station was going to do a car show. And his boss was like, John, how quick can you get this on the air? And so they went out and they shot a pilot. They shot the real first episode because the pilot never broadcast, but they shot the real first episode. And the rest is history.
Wow.
And he still worked part-time on Wall Street Week up into the 2000s, I think.
Before Bruckheiser left.
Yeah, before Bruckheiser left.
Because they wanted to jazz up the show for Wall Street Week. And Louis Bruckheiser's like, we're not doing, like, this is just a factual show about investing and market trends, and that's it. We're not doing Kramer Mad Money shit here.
Yes, so there's a lot. I mean, people at MPT, there's a lot of lifers there, people who really love working there and who are really loyal to the place. And I mean, they still talk, like when you bring up Wall Street Week, people still talking like whispers. They're like, oh, remember when Bruckheiser left? I can't believe, like, it's still a big deal to that show was their anchor for a long time. And there was something to do. I don't know the full story. So, I don't want to,
I just got it from Wikipedia.
I don't want to say anything wrong, but basically, Bruckheiser, a producer, kind of met with him and said like, hey, ratings are down. We want to add some new talent to the show. We want you to still be the host, but we want to bring in some younger talent as reporters and feature segments and stuff. And I guess Bruckheiser wasn't a fan of that. Mm-hmm. And basically, I don't know if the producer kind of told him like, hey, tough luck. But Bruckheiser went live on TV and said he was quitting live on air. Like everybody in the control room was like, oh,
wow.
He was like, well, I guess they don't want me here anymore. So, I mean, you can find the clip on YouTube. I'm not going to read it, but but I mean, but the nice thing is that Maryland Public Television survived that, and they still have John Davis and Motor Week, which is what we're all happy about. Yeah. But no, it's a cool place, which, sorry, there's no way to make this transition less awkward, but I was going to say, the documentary that I'm working on, I'm actually working with MPT to distribute it once it's completed.
Right.
Because I worked there and now I don't, but I'm still friends with people there. And they gave me a lot of mentorship and guidance on like, if you want to do a documentary and have it be on public television, here's kind of our playbook. Mm-hmm. And it, I presented my trailer to them and a budget and a plan and a treatment and all this stuff. And, their acquisitions department took a look at it and said, we think we can make this work.
Man, I wish I could get a break from regular cars and just go with you on the road so I can just get more experience and just be like, I don't know, whatever my skill set is, put me to work doing something. Well, which is probably behind the camera. Like, I can pull focus. I know how to do that. But you probably got everybody you need by then.
I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by people who are smarter than me. This entire project, there's people, like I said earlier, when the mics weren't working, there's so many people who know more about AMC than I do, like down to what cylinder head was available for half the year on what engine block and what guy designed what car, and like, Dick Teague was head of styling, but that was actually Chuck Mashigan drew the design, because anytime you read an article about AMC, it always says, well, Dick Teague was in charge of styling. It's like, well, yes, but Bob Nixon actually designed, the bodywork for the Jeep XJ, or, Chuck Mashigan did the original AMX, or like that kind of thing. It's like Teague oversaw it, but there were other people under him. And I know people who met those people and interviewed them. A lot of these guys are gone, sadly, but there's guys in the AMC community who knew the people who actually drew the original mock-ups for cars and stuff like that. And like, that's really cool to know people. And I feel like that you're able to do that with AMC, that you couldn't do that with like Ford or GM, because AMC was a small enough company that you could actually meet the person who penned the original AMX, versus like Ford, it's they probably had like 5,000 people in their styling department, It's not like AMC where you could list them all by name, So there's one guy in his 80s. He started at AMC in 1959. Yeah. He was like 23. He started in their styling department in 1959, and he worked there until Chrysler bought them and retired in the 90s. But he worked at AMC basically almost the entire time the company existed. The company existed from 54 to 87. And
was it an amalgamation of other companies in the
yes
50 something?
Yes. So in the late, basically post World War II, and if I go too into the weeds here, please,
No, it's cool.
please alert me. But post World War II, the head of Nash Kelvinator, George Mason, basically said, we need to merge before the market turns against us. He's like, the war's over. We're selling every car we can. Things are good. He's like, but it's not going to stay good. So he goes to the middle school dance and nobody wants to dance with him.
Yeah, exactly.
And he approached Packard and he approached
yes.
Hudson. There was some talk that Studebaker was in on it, but he kind of ruled them out early. He was like, Studebakers, they're in Indiana. They're doing their own thing. They're kind of strange. We don't want to be friends with them. But Hudson and Packard were his two big ones he was looking at, but the head of Packard was a real dingus and was like, well, I'll only merge with you if I can be president. And Mason's
he wanted to like jump the line.
Right. Mason's like, bro, I'm the one with all the money. Like,
you're not the one calling shots here. And then tragedy strikes.
Right. Then Henry Ford II decides that he will outsell Chevrolet or die trying. And the entire US car market just caves in on itself because they were literally delivering more cars to dealerships than dealers could sell. And so dealers were marking down Fords and Chevys so much that, like, why would you buy anything else? It'd be like if Toyota and Honda got into a sales war and a RAV4 was like $8,000 less than the Ford Escape. Like, why would you even consider buying something else?
Yeah.
And so that decimated Hudson, Nash, Studebaker, Packard.
And that was in the 40s or 50s?
Early 50s.
Yeah,
and
so
by
54-ish?
53, 54. So by 54, Hudson and Nash were partnered up. Studebaker and Packard partnered up, and they kind of each went their own way. And Hudson and Nash, literally like 6 months into the merger, George Mason dies of like pneumonia. Yep. And George Romney, who was his like vice president, becomes president and CEO, and he's only like in his 40s. And he's tasked with righting the ship, which is pretty cool. The whole story, I won't go into every little dirty detail, but the whole story of how he did it. I mean, literally it came down to the company was so desperate for cash, they switched the type of toilet paper they had in company. They went from, I don't know if any of us are old enough to remember this, but they switched from roll style to sheet style toilet paper.
Oh,
like a paper towel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot.
Our elementary school had sheet style toilet paper. It was the creepiest thing ever. It was like a brown.
I'm trying to remember that. It might have been when I was in elementary school. My first year of elementary school was like 88. I'm dating myself here. I'd have to think back and do the math, but yeah, I think.
Like
what
they had sheet style.
It might have been 89, but it wasn't in every bathroom because the school had an addition onto it in like 19. Oh, right. When I was in first grade, they were putting the addition in. So that was 1989, 1990. And the new bathrooms, I think, had rolls, and the old bathroom, which I think there was only one left and it was by the school office, and it may have either they had that or it had both, and I can't remember if they like just like sheet metal screwed a toilet paper
to the
roll
wall,
or didn't it? Because it's elementary school, so you can't be trusted with a traditional roll of toilet paper.
Right. It's got like
really can't.
The gigantic industrial thing that tears off, and it's
like a 50-year-old dispenser that says like Kimberly on it.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah.
So
there was Westworld, which I always thought meant Waste World.
If you love corporate history, the story of Kimberly Clark is also fascinating. This isn't a toilet paper podcast, so I won't derail.
Has someone already on YouTube made a documentary on Kimberly Clark?
I don't know, but if they haven't, they should. I first learned about it in the book Good to Great. It's like a corporate history book, and the story of Kimberly Clark is fascinating. As one person said, he's like, I can't get excited about paper, but I can get excited about diapers. And it was their switch from making bulk paper into making consumer products like diapers, toilet paper, Kleenex, that kind of thing, that changed the company. And so it was just that line about the guy being like, I like diapers. It was like some product engineer.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't get excited about paper. He's like, but a diaper is something you can really sink your teeth into.
Wow.
Metaphorically. So, but no, so we actually interviewed Mitt Romney for our documentary and asked him, he's one of the few people left who still remembers his dad, who actually knew his father as in a personal way. and we interviewed Mitt Romney, and we drove down to DC, and we got like 40 minutes with him, and we interviewed him.
Kind of a lot for a guy as busy as him.
Yeah, we were really lucky that one of my co-producers is much older than me and has written a lot of AMC books and wrote a biography on George Romney. And so he's not like best friends with Mitt, but he was acquaintanced enough that like when he mentioned, he called his secretary and was like, yeah, we can probably squeeze you in.
And it was probably nice for Mitt to get a break from, or to talk about his dad. Because I mean, I imagine he doesn't have many opportunities in a sort of media setting to talk about his father. So that's probably
everything's politics.
Stroll down memory lane, you know?
Yeah, I think his dad means a lot to him. He had a photo of his dad in his office on one of his shelves, and just, you know, I think you know, he's very inspired by his father. And so, yeah, it was cool to hear him talk about stuff. He told some funny stories. His dad, in a lot of ways, was like one of the first celebrity CEOs. Because, like, you know, name the CEO of General Motors in 1959.
Yeah, people in the comments are going to know.
Yeah.
Or like name, you know, Henry Ford.
Henry Ford is on. Yeah. And you could talk about Iacocca because he was on. He starred in his own commercials.
Right.
When he was with Chrysler and got famous that way.
He was like Iacocca before Iacocca was Iacocca. I mean, because George Romney did commercials for American Motors. He did speaking tours. There were photos of him in the brochures. And I think, so like he really leaned into being like the voice of the company. And I think he kind of had a preacher vibe to him. And he's like, why do you need to buy more? There's actually videos of him, so I'm impersonating the voice. He's like, why do you need to buy more car than you think you can use? With a Rambler, you get compact economy that today's owner needs. Save money on gasoline. Don't buy a car that's so big you can't park it in the garage.
Well, it also felt like during that time, he was one of the few CEOs to actually put their face in front of something so that you could become that sort of celebrity because you are, I suppose, confident enough in your product to be able to stand behind it. Because at this time, like AMC, like the creation of it was the biggest corporate merger of any kind, not just auto. So,
yeah, it was because it's weird because people say AMC is small and compared to GM, yes. But compared to any other industry, you know, steel or, you know, whatever manufacturing, I mean, AMC was a very large company. They employed at their peak like 35,000 people or something. I mean, they were a large company.
Yeah, they were giving out generational work. I mean, granted, from the time of their merge to their demise, I mean, what, 40 years, 35, 40 years. But still, that's enough time to kind of leave a mark in people's lives such that, you know, they become sort of AMC lifers.
Oh, sure. Well, and especially with of the two partners, Nash was definitely the senior partner in the marriage. They were the one that, you know, wore the pants, as the boomers would say. But there are people who, you know, I've talked to people who, you know, my dad worked at Nash, my granddad, you know, my dad worked at AMC, my granddad worked at Nash, my granddad worked at, his granddad worked at Nash, and
and then my other granddad, it was a Kelvinator repairman,
and, you know, fixing. So it's a company that means a lot to a lot of people, and I think that's what's really cool about the, I think that's what's really cool about this story. I mean, yeah, I love cars. And cars are fun to talk about, but I think just seeing how much AMC means to people, the people who worked there, the people whose lives and livelihoods depended on it, it was a really cool, it was really meaningful to them, and it's meaningful to me to hear those stories.
Yeah.
So I guess I should say at this point, we do have a trailer. If you want to see proof of that, we're actually doing something. If you Google the Last Independent Automaker, you can find our trailer and watch it. It's only like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. After this podcast wraps, I'm going to post that in the description of this video.
Yeah.
So
remind me, I'll do that as well.
If you're watching this, like after, if you're not watching this, if it were not live right now, check the description and hopefully it's in there like one of us remembered. So it is very much some. Oh, this question right here. AS asks, do ashtrays in cars make a comeback? Which sounds like kind of an AMC adjacent question, or at least from that era of automotive.
We're going to get vape trays.
Vape. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you have a
Cartridge
USB
storage.
if you have a USB plug, that's for your vape now, right? That's
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah, the Nairo
Yeah.
doesn't have an ashtray.
Yeah.
It's got a plate that's got wireless charging for your phone. It has the USB that goes into the head unit, and then the other one that just charges. None in the back. Nothing. There's no charging ports or anything in the back
Really?
seats.
Hmm.
The back seats get controllable HVAC. Well, they get vents that you can turn on and off. They don't have their own controls in the back. Surprising things about the also about the Nairo. I have a button on my key fob that looks like it opens the trunk, but it doesn't do anything because the trunk is just or the lift gate is just a traditional pop
just
it.
gas struts.
Yeah, there's just nothing there. I guess maybe that
Maybe it unlocks it, but you still have to manually lift it up.
we ought to try that. We ought to lock the car. Okay, everything's locked. Press the button
Yeah.
and then see if just the lift gate unlocks.
Because like my key, the lift gate unlocks separately from the doors. It's a hatch, but on my Subaru, the lift gate is this button and the doors are this. And to unlock everything, you hit the door lock twice.
That's interesting because my Subaru just had, well, from 04, just had 2 buttons, lock and unlock, and that included the hatch. So you had to hit it twice, and that would get your hatch as well. We got to get to some of these super chats. People have been waiting.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, but wait.
No,
We're
they can wait.
It's good conversation. I mean, this is kind of
You did ask about ashtrays. One fun fact: AMC cars had ball bearings in their ashtrays, and that was like a big selling point at one point.
That it opens smoothly.
yeah,
Well, there was
like
in the 60s, they were one of the people who was doing the ad campaign. They're like, how can we make these cars stand out? And she like went over the entire car with like a fine tooth comb, and she's like, they put ball bearings in their ashtrays. And she's like, we can sell that. It's like, so it was part of a larger ad that was like AMC cars have more care put into them, a larger battery, more hip room, and ball bearings in the ashtray. And,
Yeah.
it was kind of the sum of its parts was kind of the message.
I wonder what that would have been like in the sort of like 60s and 70s, like Mad Men era, where it was just smoking everywhere.
It's crazy, man. I don't know how people did it.
It's kind of like how, I guess, but that's more of like an LA or Philly thing. Notice how I didn't even say New York. It's like you go into places, you walk outside and there's just weed smell. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But people are still getting stuff done. But like people, I guess, were athletic in the 70s. Where people just smoked all the time. It's like weird.
Everybody just had malnutrition, and that's why they were skinny. Like they were just eating white bread, but like they would only eat 1 sandwich instead of 6.
Gotcha.
That's my conspiracy theory on how everybody stayed thin.
Yeah.
It was just white bread and liquor, but they only had 1 serving.
Yeah.
I mean, the oldest man in New York, he reached 109, which he swears on a weekly diet of lard on toast and a full gallon of Thunderbird wine a week.
Did Lewis Black mention that in one of his bits?
He might have.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's how I know it. It was a Lewis Black. He brought it up.
Well, it's like funny if you ever see a car at a car show, like somebody doing the Winga-Dinga drive-in burger restaurant thing, and it has like a vintage McDonald's cup. McDonald's soda was like 6 ounces.
Yeah.
And now the small at McDonald's is like 18 ounces.
Yeah.
So part of it, I think, is just people just ate less.
Yeah. Car foolery.
You
already answered that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, car foolery. Did you ever drive the stick shift S197 giveaway car?
I believe I did for a hot second, like around our filming lot, just to kind of get a feel for what it could do. And it was interesting. What was the rest of the question? If so, did it
make you want a V8 Mustang in the future?
Do you like? I mean, I did like it. I don't even know what I want in the future, really. If I want to stay with a Mustang or if I want to branch out. I mean, unfortunately, I'm at a point where I got to make Betty last as long as humanly possible, which is kind of a bit of a turnaround from the start of the year where I'm like, well, maybe this is like the last year for Betty. But now it's like, there's really no reason to throw the baby with the bathwater yet, or throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think. So
it's like at one point, on one hand, she's worth more now than she ever has been, but then replacing her is going to cost more than that ever would.
Yeah. So. And it's like, she's not in the most like spring chicken condition at the moment. I mean, she's not like falling apart or anything. It's just, it is a nearly 20-year-old car, and so there are going to be like little things that accumulate over time. And also, I live in a place that essentially like wrecks suspension. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's kind of
That's Pennsylvania.
it's Pennsylvania. It's what are you going to do? So
Just don't drive down that road where that car show is that has all the potholes.
that has
You
all
can
the
tell.
well, I mean, PennDOT paved the road now, so now it's like smooth as silk
Mhm.
riding on that thing, which just goes to show you that if PennDOT gets if people get on PennDOT about something, they will pave it, or they will do the thing and not take 7 months to fix a road, or at least that's the sort of implication that I arrived at, that if enough of the old men who want to get to a car show but don't want to wreck the suspension of their classic car, of their like Chevelle or whatever, they want to be
Right.
able to drive that road, PennDOT will get on that business.
Like if the president has to drive over this bridge at the end of the month, they'll finish the bridge in a month, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Boris, wouldn't be a podcast without you. You passed your CDL test.
Hey,
Have some celebratory
congratulations.
cash. By the way, love Monday's video. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you like Monday's video, you're gonna like next Monday's video because it's a little bit of change in the format in the beginning. I don't want to mess with the format too much, but I'm not gonna spoil it. And after this, I'll show Joe. Like, we found this little artifact from this car, and it was very nice, and it's something that doesn't happen anymore, and it's very good because the car's a piece of shit. And it's definitely it's a terrible car that was expensive. See, this is the stuff I love. Terrible car, poorly marketed, complete failure, very expensive, and a gigantic hype train behind it.
Yes.
Now
I'm really starting to wonder what it is.
Yeah, it's a car we haven't done yet, and people have been asking for this. Car Foolery says, Brian, now that you've relived the 90s in the Sarah, do you feel like you're even less likely to ever own an SW20? Yes. The only SW20 I'd ever want to own is one that Justin Burnash built, one of the Prime built ones that has the Caldina Gen 4 3S GTE in the back with the big turbo and the tune and 300 or 350 wheel horsepower and all day long. So do I feel less nostalgic about 90s cars? No, I don't. I still love them, but I've been 90s outed. I'm 90s out for a while. I drive a 3rd gen Toyota 4Runner as my daily. Even though it's the year 2000, I mean, the car was built in 96 and ended in 02. So it's a 96 design. The only stuff they really changed about the 4Runner was in like 98 or something. There was an interior refresh where they finally put bigger cup holders in, to your point. Like the old ones were like the old ones from the Toyota pickup, or as other people know, the Toyota Hilux, which was that Toyota push it in. It comes out on the top of the dash.
Yeah.
Great for a tiny cup with a lid.
Great for a soda can.
Yeah. Everything else falls out. So then they finally put them down by the center console. And then I think in 2001, they did the exterior refresh where the chrome bumpers went away. That was looking really dated in the early 2000s. And
nothing was allowed to have chrome. It all had to be body colored.
Yep. Body color the whole car and added that hood scoop that doesn't do anything. So mine is pre facelift, post interior refresh. So that gets me my 90s feel of just rugged Toyota, and everything's analog. And the most sophisticated thing about the car is probably just the engineering of the engine, and also the well-built transfer case. And also I don't have I like the big fatty tires that are on it. I mean, it's 16-inch wheels and like huge rubber on this thing. And that's just how they came. Terrible handling, but I just hit, I hit speed bumps at full speed.
You're
just,
right.
I don't care. Drive off road, drive back on road. So no, I'm still very nostalgic about 90s cars. But they need 21st century tech to make them move like you think they do. And right now since I have my EV, this is the antithesis of all the things I've had. I mean, we have usually something fast every week for the giveaways. So that's how I get my kicks now with high performance stuff. I don't need to be stimulated all the time. Now I want something unstimulating and uncar-like. Here's my, the funny thing is the Niro EV is something like 275 pound-feet of torque. And that's what my Falcon had 300. So, and that was out of a 5-liter V8.
Right.
I'm like, oh, and this thing's, although it's probably heavier
Well,
than the Falcon, but, and I'll cover this in the video when we finally talk about the Niro, is that, are you going to get your money back? No, I'm not. I'm never going to break even on filling it up with electricity. But what I am purchasing with my money is not having to deal with you people all the time at the gas stations and your stupid stickers that you put on the gas pumps and old boomers who just want to have a conversation with me at the pumps and like assault me with political talk because they know I'm a captive audience and I can't leave. So, and going inside the gas station when I pay with cash with hiker money and just having to wait. Suddenly the idea, and this is echoed by, I think I even said this last week from Technology Connections, that he was surprised how annoyed he was when he was driving a gas car. Like, I have to go somewhere? The fuck is this?
Right.
I have to detour because, you know, he put in his 220 in the garage. So now, like, every time I drive it up, it's like at 80% or 90%. I just don't go to a gas station ever. And so, and true to that point, I now visit a gas station about once a week. And now this is during the summer. During the winter, it was probably like that when I was driving, not quite as much. But now with picking up hikers, before the EV, I was spending about $20 a day in fuel, just running around picking them up. Now, that was, of course, making a profit. But what? So if I was doing 10 a month, that's $300, but I'm spending $600 a month on, right? Am I doing the math right?
Well, hang on. How much did you say it was? I lost
$20. Like, if during the bubble, like during right now, when the hikers go through, I will, if I'm using the 4Runner, I'll burn through $20 of fuel a day.
A day.
A day.
Okay, so 20 times. What are you doing? Like 25 days? How many days do you?
Every day.
Every day. So it's 20 times 30.
Dude, $600.
$600 of gas. Dang.
Yeah.
Damn.
Run like 4Runner, 50 miles a gallon.
Yeah, really.
But, you know, you can pick up hikers, you can drive up the trails and stuff like that. But now I will use the Niro and I'll charge the same. Well, I'll charge less. I will undercut the other shuttle drivers because I can.
Yeah.
A shuttle drive that would have been $30 is now $20 for them. And it's like $3 for me. And I get them to the trail and back faster, honestly, because I'm just rocketing up these hills.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if it's like a whole bunch of hikers with like smelly packs and stuff, then that's obviously they're going to get the 4Runner. Yeah, I'm going to all the windows down, sunroof open, and back glass all the way down. Because holy crap, I mean, we're getting into the dog days. We're in the dog days of summer, and these hikers smell like death.
What if it's raining?
Then they smell even worse because now they can't.
They got the funk on them.
Yeah, if they're like, today is not going to be too bad. If they're standing out on the side of the road in the sun for a while, most of that sweat will evaporate off of them, and they'll get some UV and start making their packs not stink. But when it's, you know, later next week, we're going to get thunderstorms, and it's not going to be all that cooler, so they're going to be wet.
Right, and rain like makes you sweat more when your shirt's wet because it won't evaporate, and so you sweat more, and then you get wetter, and then you're like, oh.
Well, I just mean in regards to like, what do you do if it's raining and you can't really open the back glass and the sunroof?
Well, then the air conditioner goes on, and you just have to deal with it. And then when I get back, the entire car gets inside the car gets sprayed down with a GP cleaner, lavender scented GP cleaner. Has a degreasing agent, and that's what I watched from some sort of auto detailing. It's like they legitimately just use this in a drill brush, and you got to get the bacteria out of your upholstery. Now they're sitting on towels. Towels immediately leave and they go in the wash. So, what's a good way to describe how they smell? It's like, you want to say like middle school locker room in the 90s, and kids who are afraid to shower because that makes them gay. And of course, I'm talking in 90s terms. Like no one showered.
Oh my God, I wouldn't shower. It would freak me out. And then my buddy Derek at the time was like, it's not a big deal, dude. It's literally just guys go in there, they shower, just dude, it's fine. But I was just like,
you don't want to be the first one. If somebody
I don't wanna
else goes in, then you're like, okay.
Yeah,
well,
I remember in the 90s in high school, there was one guy who showered and everybody called him a fag.
Like,
And
yeah.
everyone else just sprayed themselves down with deodorant.
Axe body spray. Well, that was a 2000s thing.
Yeah, so
That-
this
that
would have been
wasn't
like
the 90s.
Brute or something like that.
That's why people in the 70s wore so much cologne, because nothing had air conditioning and they all wore polyester.
Hell yeah.
And people must have just
Ugh.
stank.
You ever see like pictures of like stuff like the not Maury Povich, like it's older ones, like
what, like Donahue?
yeah, stuff like that. And we're talking like older than that,
Or-
72. So that would have been like Dick Cavett show or something
Oh,
like that,
Dick Cavett show.
where everybody just looks greasy. Like
Yes.
like men in the 70s, they all looked 40 no matter what. They had like lines
Yeah.
and stuff. And I guess they wouldn't wear TV makeup. I guess
Right.
that'd
The
be
old,
right.
the old
the
Arn
tobacco-
Anderson syndrome. Yeah.
Between the tobacco and the booze, everybody looked like they were, they just looked old. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, and now we have a young comedian. He's 29. He comes out and he looks like he's 50.
Yeah.
But of course now, every man on TV that's over like 40 has, their hair done up and makeup.
Yeah.
And their hair's dyed, or else they've got plugs or whatever. And
And probably fitness has a thing to do with it.
that's
Do you remember seeing pictures of like Iacocca when he was doing like the 56 for 56 or 57 for 57? Or was it 58 for 58? That when he started the idea of leasing a car.
I wanted to say 53 for 53, but now I can't remember.
Yeah. But he was like in his early 20s or something like that. And he looks 49.
Yeah,
It's
so
just
wild.
he looks older than me. I mean, yeah, he had more hair, but it was just sort of that pumpkin face and like I gotta look up.
You just like you look at that, and that's a man with a mortgage. Like,
yeah.
but he's in his well, I mean, it's like the classic 80s wrestling thing of like all the heartthrobs back then look like they were 35, but they're like 24. It's like,
Well, and the funny thing is when you have certain actors who have been 55 for 30 years,
yeah,
like they started acting in the 80s and they already look like they were 55, and then like just drew like the 80s into the 90s into 2000, they look the same
yeah.
because like makeup starts getting better, plastic surgery starts getting better, and so they just keep the same look for 30 years.
I mean, I think like there's some people.
I don't know what year that is.
Well, that's a Ford, right? He's standing next to a
He looks
Ford.
like
Right.
Roy Campbell from Metal Gear Solid.
There's
He does. This is why we need a producer so you can see what we're seeing.
Yeah, we need
and
a
we
Jamie
will-
to throw that up.
And
Yeah.
we will.
there was
These are old ones, but again, it's hard to.
Have you guys ever seen the commercial that Iacocca did with Snoop Dogg in the early 2000s?
I did. I saw that one. That's
No.
wild.
for I don't know if it was a PT Cruiser
It was
or,
like it was the early 2000s.
or
I
like
think
a Sebring or something.
it was something like that. It was like in that general vicinity of, we're trying to give you something that's
the
like, oh,
youths.
yeah,
The youth. So
that sure is a picture.
as the story goes, Iacocca's slogan was always, "If you can find a better car, buy it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Snoop has his Snoopified version where he goes, "If the ride is more fly, you must buy." And then like the camera pans over to Iacocca and he goes, "That's what I hear." And then like hits a golf
It's
ball.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like I
Is
think
Snoop also like a big golfer now? Or am I
I don't
thinking
know.
of something else?
Like Snoop has diversified his hobbies, his brand. He's all over the place.
Is he 70 now?
Oh no, he's. Let's see.
was he 60?
Anyway, pass my CDL test. Car Fool, says, Brian, now you live. Oh, I answered that question. Yeah.
How old is
Say how many?
Dog? He is 50.
Oh, okay.
So he'll be looking like he's 40 for another 20 years.
Probably like
Oh,
Lance.
so there
Reddick.
literally is no other super chats.
Not yet, but
All right.
there is a regular chat question in there to the effect of, where did it
Oh,
go?
it's
Here,
hot.
what kind of impact will cars and bids have on the car market in the next few years? I'm from Germany, so I have an idea.
Well, Doug was posting about how the prices are correcting themselves a bit.
And people are mad. Sellers are like can't accept reality.
Oh yeah. I think we will. I am on. See, I'm correcting myself like every single time. I think the idea of a barn find will be a thing of the past. Because as everybody is, the more people are connected with auto prices and used prices, and the more people can compare what cars are truly selling for. Your only hope for true bargains is finding fools or finding people who don't care. I want it gone.
Right. The idea of the little old lady who just drove it to church on Sundays kind of thing is going to be a thing of the past.
On the other hand, it takes work to put a car up, even on Cars and Bids. There is no lying anymore. Anything you say, you have to prove. And if you can't prove it, Cars and Bids will say the owner claims that, and they won't let you state things for an actual fact unless you can prove it on paper. So there is more. The consumer has now proof of the claims from the owner. Whereas before you had to read in between the lines of ads to find out if the owner is lying. Little things like if the car's license plate is being shushed, then that person is a little dumb because people see your license plate every day. That's kind of funny.
What the thumb?
The thumb. Like,
thing,
what are you doing? Who cares? Well, I'm protecting it. All right. Then the price is going. Like if I see a car and it's being shushed, automatically $200 comes off my offer. Because if you're too lazy, like if you really want to hide the plate and make it look tasteful, you'd use at least Microsoft Paint and just cover it up with a nice little square. But you're too lazy to even do that.
Right. Take a screwdriver. Take the plate off.
Take the plate off.
Put a microfiber over it.
At least then you're not Streisand affecting it.
Yeah.
When you do the thing with when you have like your oil covered thumb over the plate.
If you're so lazy to do that, what other things have you been lazy about with the car? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you can't rotate the picture,
if
the picture of the car is vertical and I'm looking at it like this in the face, and this is usually Facebook Marketplace. So Facebook
or if the photo's a screenshot.
Yeah.
And it has like black bars on it.
Yeah. Or it's a copy of something else. Yeah. Or a picture of your computer screen.
Yes, that's the best one.
Okay. This is probably a bargain. There's going to be something wrong with the car, but I can probably get this for a good price. So yeah. Cars and Bids democratized selling. And it also allows sellers to find committed owners.
Yeah.
So ever since, Bring a Trailer in this, I have not sold a car privately ever, with the exception of Goldie, which
that was a friend deal.
That was a friend deal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm happy that it exists. And it's also great entertainment for me when I'm like winding down at the end of the night and say, oh, what's here? What's here? I did find it a little bit insidious of dealers who immediately went during the big time shortages, stuff like Rivians, Ford F-150 Lightnings, Ram TRXs, Hummer EVs.
They started listing them on Cars and Bids.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that Cars and Bids was only a certain year and below.
Certain year and above.
And above. Oh,
nothing older than 1980.
All right.
But they'll do modern stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So knowing that they can still take orders and they're one allotment, they can probably put it up, whether they were up for, I think they put it up for just some price. And since Cars and Bids is free, if they don't make it, and that's where you see things going for like $50,000 over sticker.
Yeah.
And then it's from a dealership. So
What do you think that stuff like Cars and Bids has an impact on the price of does it trickle down to Facebook Marketplace? So, your Facebook guy sees that somebody's Civic sold for 50 grand. So he's like, I bet I can get 50 grand for my Civic.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
It's got a manual stick.
But then you see some outrageous price on Facebook Marketplace and you're like, all right, no.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Everything's price is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the real price is in there. That's the thing I like. I think the best car ads are the ones that say no reserve. And every ones I've sold, I put up no reserve. And I keep saying all balls. Like that's someone who's got something, they're confident in it. They have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
Let the market do what it wants. I like you.
Wasn't Tony's Beat no reserve?
I think I pressured him into putting up no reserve,
Yeah.
and he still made like $5,000 on that car or something. Yeah, he was happy with that price. Already, he wants a Renault. That family thing that Top Gear did. What was it? Renault.
Not the
A Fiat Multipla. That's what.
Yeah.
Once that thing's like, yeah, this is gonna be freaking cool. Austin Bowers says, first time catching one of these things live. Love the channel. Thank you. Thoughts on buying a car your freshman year of college? You're a fucking idiot. Here is some electrician money. Thank you. Thank you for the money. Don't buy a car freshman year in college. You're in college to learn, not to drive. Whatever you're driving, you're driving. There'll be plenty of times to buy something nice when you're done. You have a career.
Plus, it's fun to stay at college because there's stuff that happens there.
Yeah.
What are you going to drive home for? Well, of course, the way I grew up, driving home meant I had to come help my dad on the farm. So like I was always looking for excuses to stay at school.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to study.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Don't buy a car in college.
Yeah.
You're not a college is for leveling up your skills. Now, unless you're at a trade school, like where you're working on cars, a car like that, really, looking back, having the car there was kind of useful. I mean, it would go home on the weekends.
Well, if you already have a car, then fine. But if you're buying a new car just for college, that I wouldn't advise that. But like if you have some beater that you can drive to Sheetz at 3 a.m. and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's nice to have wheels at college.
Yeah.
But I would not buy a new car just to go to college or a new used car just to go to college. Because like college, you're hauling around friends, people are, your car gets scratched. It sits outside the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's everything's covered in like pine needles and bird droppings and, and then, people open their car doors into you. So like taking a nice car to college is not the way to go.
Yeah. Looking back, there was no real reason for me to have my Dodge Neon at school. I would go home and wash my clothes and eat food. And because, my clothes would get cleaner at home than they would in like the coin op one in the basement of the dorm. And I didn't need it for work because I worked on campus. So all I was doing was just burning up cash, like driving around. And
we had a kid set fire to the washing machine in our dorm because he overfilled it. And the belt caught fire. It didn't burn down the dorm or anything, but he literally filled it up to the lid, packed it down, and put more clothes on top of that. And the drum was so full it couldn't spin. And so the belt on the motor just caught fire.
Trying to do 4 months worth of laundry in one load.
Right, exactly.
I for college, I took a bus everywhere because Penn State has a wonderful transit system in the sense that, you just scan your little card thing and you're good to go and it'll take you wherever you need. And then I'd hop the Greyhound back home because luckily I live in a town where the bus drops you off right near where, my house was or my mom's house was. And so ultimately it's the type of feeling of never really feeling like you needed a car. And on top of that, I was broke. I couldn't afford a car. I couldn't really drive at the time because of the pills I was on. It's just a whole thing where it's not recommended to operate machinery. And so the whole time I was just not even feeling necessarily like I was missing out because everything was in walking distance. And in a way, it compels you to stay in better shape because you're constantly walking everywhere. And
Right.
half the time you're not even necessarily having to go that far. You know, if I had to get groceries or something, there were stores around the corner and everything.
Right.
So I don't know. I was very lucky in that regard. So
Mhm.
I had a
Very
friend
lucky.
who would drive across campus because he didn't want to walk.
There were those guys, yeah,
You-
Kutztown, like Lytle Hall's too far, and then they'd get tickets, and they'd be like, "I got a ticket."
It's like, well, it says no student
Parking. Yeah, you need you would get a parking pass for a specific lot,
Right.
oh,
and then yeah,
I didn't know that.
it was based on how many credits you had.
Well,
So
and
if
then-
you're a freshman, you're parking in the fairgrounds lot, and it takes like half an hour to walk to your car.
Oh,
So and then you can park at this lot, and then as you get more, you can get and
Right, you get
eventually
upgraded.
I could park behind the dorm, and now that was pretty nice.
But
Um,
no, that's really funny. Yeah, like he would be like, I don't want to walk to class, and so he'd drive his truck like literally a quarter of a mile to get to class, and then he'd get a ticket, and then he'd be mad. And I'm like,
it's like, what do you want me? What am I supposed to do with this right here? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. People, they kind of, I think cars are viewed too often as a sort of a way to cut the Gordian knot rather than trying to rather than to just, it's something there to make life easier when you need it to make life
Yeah.
easier. Like, yes, it's also there to enjoy it, but also I feel like the primary function, make travel happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're going a quarter of a mile, I mean, for crying out loud, just walk.
Yeah. For me, having the car on campus was symbolic of me being free. Freedom from I can leave whenever I want, and of course, I hardly ever did. But not having to rely on my parents when I wanted to come home, and that was a huge deal of not being under Dad's McCarthy type eye. Now that's coming from a military household, so Navy dad always wanted to know what's up, always observing and letting you know he's on watching you. And so I like the idea, like if I want to, I can go visit people, and I can be off the radar.
right.
I can leave. And I would from time to time visit friends at other campuses. I would drive time to time. My buddy was going to Johns Hopkins, so I would drive down to Baltimore for some time to go visit Tom, or some other people were out in Allentown, so I could go visit them. I feel sad, and I mentioned this on podcast before, like I was in Kutztown in the early 2000s, and I knew that the Bieber ran the bus to Manhattan, and thinking I could have gone to the cellar at any time I wanted, and I probably would have caught like Patrice O'Neill or Dave Attell. Actually, no, Dave Attell was doing Insomniac, so he wouldn't have been there. But seeing all these legendary comedians who weren't really known that well, they were just there, and I could have just gone buy a ticket and then catch the late bus at like 11:30 back to campus and had a fun time. And I never did that.
Yeah, but that would require you to be now, or to have been then who you are now.
Right. Be confident enough to realize that Manhattan's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been going for an hour and 20 minutes here,
Dang.
and I'm
Yeah.
getting hot.
It is hot.
Yeah.
And you guys got a Nairo to drive.
Yeah, we do.
It's going to
So,
be nice.
thank you so much for everybody who's watched the podcast. Thank you to everybody who donates to the Patreon. You're allowing regular car reviews to function as a much larger channel than it really is. Thank you to everybody who donated to Super Chats. And thank you to Joe Ligo for joining
Thank
us from
you.
AutoMoments. Once again, plug your stuff. Tell us about the documentary.
Yeah, so if you like AMCs, like this ad that has a guy skiing with an AMC Eagle, I know you like skis.
Yep.
If you like AMCs, check out the Last Independent Automaker. Just Google it. There's a trailer, there's a website, and there's a GoFundMe. So if you're interested in helping us preserve automotive history, check that out. We appreciate your support. But definitely, if nothing else, watch the trailer just because it's cool to see all these people talk about how much this company meant to them. It's not just about the cars. It was lives and livelihoods that were changed by working there. And it's even been eye-opening to me when you talk to people who actually build cars. It's an aspect of the enthusiast world we don't often get to hear about. And so that's really cool to hear people tell those stories. And I hope I can do their stories justice.
Nice.
Very nicely spoken.
Oh, well, thank you.
Nicely said.
Mhm.
But thank you guys for having me. By the way, I want to make sure I thank
Oh yeah,
you
welcome
guys
any,
for your
It has been an
hospitality.
welcome
I'm adding
anytime.
the trailer to the description.
Excellent.
Yes.
Nice.
Alrighty, thanks guys for watching, and see you in the next.
Take
Goodbye.
care, everyone.